In 1827, a group of prominent free African Americans met in New York City in the home of Boston Crummell, and they met there to discuss how they might be able to get their collective concerns to the masses. They were from the Eastern Seaboard, and the purpose was to discuss the means by which they could convey their views on major social, political, and economic issues that faced their communities commonly. They recognized that although they lived in different states, their issues were much the same. And so they met, they conversed. They understood that they were utilizing the church and fraternities and social organizations at that time for dialogue amongst blacks, but that was not enough to get their messages intelligently and quickly articulated to the masses. And it was out of that meeting, as you know, that the first newspaper publication was born, the Freedmen's Journal. They also understood that they could not depend on mainstream media to tell our story. In fact, for the most part, whenever print media talked about blacks at that time, it was to denigrate them and to cast us as an immoral people holistically, and to deface us by dealing with the fact that we were not a people of integrity. It's amazing that it was 1827 and this is 2016, and that is still much the case. We're still having difficulty getting our true story told by mainstream media, and it seems that there's still a bent towards characterizing African Americans as a people, holistically, as a people who's immoral, irresponsible, and unredeemable. And yet, much of our community still remains somehow enslaved to mass media. We take our own perceptions from what they have to say about us. But the group that met in New York understood, as they wrote in their first publication, too long have we depended on others to tell our story. We must and we will tell our own. I think that that is the essence as to why this gathering is important, why this association's continuance is important, and why there has to be dialogue and conversation amongst publishers to discuss what you have in common, as opposed to how you can compete. I want to talk about how you can collaborate and how we must collaborate if we're going to contribute to the collective progress of our people. For the truth of the matter is, in 2016, African Americans are in trouble. We don't like to talk much about our actual predicament, our factual predicament. We like to talk more about our romanticized, fantasized predicament. But if you would look at the realities facing our people, we are people in peril. In fact, the biblical description of it would be perishing. In every major negative category, we lead. And in every positive category, we're on the bottom. I liken it unto the people who were on the Titanic when it sank. History tells us that there were people dancing on one deck, not realizing the ship was sinking, and they danced while they drowned. I want to say to you that we're often the people partying while we perish. For when you look at the achievement gap educationally, economically, you look at how sick we are physically, you look at our family disintegration and our neighborhood dissolution, all across the spectrum, you'll discover that as great a people as we are, our predicament does not look good. It does not look good. We're shrinking in numbers. We've been outpaced by others. And the few of us who have succeeded are disconnected from the masses that are in absolute trouble. We cannot survive as a people the way that we're going. I don't want to rehearse the litany of problems. I've got stats in my book that I could just quote. I don't want to just quote statistics. You know those better than I. But I want to talk about today the power of print to participate in our collective progress. The printer's power. And that power to connect our history to our destiny. It's the power of connecting history to destiny. There's a scripture in the Old Testament, the book of Judges. You can read it at your leisure. Chapter 2, it says that when Joshua and his generation had gone home to be with the Lord, there arose another generation who did not know the Lord, and neither did they know what God had done for Israel. They forsook the Lord and abandoned his ways, his statutes. In fact, they rejected all that God had done and had been. And because of that, God left them into the hands of their enemies, who plundered and destroyed them because they forsook the Lord. They could not win in the battles because God was not on their side. This generation I call the disconnected generation. They did not know God, and they were ignorant as to what God had done in their history. And you know, like I know, anytime a people forgets who they are in history, they've automatically forfeited their purpose destinies. That's really where we are as a people. All hope is not lost, but unless we face the realities and sound the alarm, we're going to become what used to be a people. The late Dr. E.V. Hill spoke at my 25th pastoral anniversary, my 20th rather, pastoral anniversary banquet, and here's what he said. He was trembling as an old man who was sick, and he said these words. He said, I'm going to my grave with a question in my mind, and that is, will black Americans, African Americans, ever be a people again? He said when we were Negroes, we were a people. When we were colored, we were a people. But now that we're African Americans, we're no longer a people. We see ourselves as individuals, and the truth of the matter is, as great as we've been, as a people, we are perishing. I want to talk about this disconnected generation and what I believe the power of the print is in helping to restore and redeem and to reposition black Americans. We need you. We need what you do and what you represent, but we need that in a different sort of way. Ladies and gentlemen, I humbly submit to you the need for black publishers in print media today is as much necessary as it was in 1827. We know that just by what's happened over the last 8 years with the Obama administration, because mainstream media has painted a villain, the picture of a villain who's un-American, who absolutely has no loyalty and no love for this nation. But we know better. We have to tell the story about who we are and who God has made us to be. And of course, as publishers in print, you stand on broad shoulders. Over the years, journalists have contributed to this journey that you're on, like Frederick Douglass and Du Bois and Ida B. Wells Barnett and Langston Hughes, Daisy Bates. These are the printers and the publishers who came before you. These people are sacred in our history, and so I'd like to talk about what you write as sacred text, because what you write should really not only give us information and inspiration, but the power of black media ought to be a source of intimidation. We ought to cause people to be afraid to bother our community, because we've got the black publishing world standing as vanguards to who we are. This is a higher and noble call. And so I want to just leave three things with you. First of all, you can help us to cast new vision. We need new vision. We need new vision. Wherever there's perishing, there's a lack of vision. Where there is no vision, the book says people perish. And what is vision? Vision is a divinely inspired portrait of possibility that's fueled by God's power to accomplish God's purposes through God's people for God's praise. Vision is an inspired portrait of what can be as opposed to what is. And when we look at our predicament as a people, we can't just see it for what it is. Somebody has to write about what it can become. Somebody has to talk about what our children can be, what our neighborhoods can look like, what our economic circumstance can become. We can't just report what is. We've got to also cast vision for what can be. What can be. We've got to inspire a generation to believe themselves to be something potentially that they cannot yet see themselves being actually. We've got to cast vision that says to our young men and our young girls, prison is not your absolute destiny. It's a detour if you take it. And even if you took it, you don't have to stay on that road. Vision is about what you can be, what you can become, what God has invested in you, a divinely inspired portrait of possibility. Every time I pick up a newspaper that's written by us, somebody ought to be telling me what I can become, what a family can be, what a neighborhood can be, what a business can be, what a child can become. Vision is a divinely inspired portrait of possibility, a portrait of possibility. What should our neighborhoods look like? What should our schools look like? What should our communities look like? We need inspired publishing, inspired print, not just print that talks about the latest gossip and the latest humbug, but print that talks about who we are as a people, our greatness that's inherent in us, that's innate within us, that says to us that we've got every opportunity and possibility to overcome everything that's against us, to become everything God has made us to be. I challenge you to cast new vision and to see yourselves differently, not just as competitors, but as colleagues in the same field and industry. Imagine what it would happen if there was a united black press in every local market. You're still fighting over the crumbs that major advertisers leave on the floor. But imagine local summits where all black publishers brought black advertisers and corporate America together to say, this is what you've been giving us collectively, but this is what we demand you spend with us collectively. We could change the attitudes of those who treat us as if we should be grateful for the crumbs. This is not something you can do by yourself. And so you've got to have a vision of inclusivity and unification in order to stand together to leverage our collective power. Because the truth of the matter is only one newspaper succeeds, we all fail. If only one publication succeeds, the rest of us fail. And so we've got to have vision that brings all of us together, all of us together. Imagine what it would look like if there was an annual summit sponsored by, coordinated by the collective of black publishers in a location, in a city, in a county. What would happen if we brought people and retailers to the table to say, buy a booth at this symposium. By the way, if you don't spend here, we won't shop there. That's the marriage that has to take place, not just between publishers, but then publishers and partners like churches and black churches in particular. Because unless we marry the power of the black pulpit and the black print, both of us are weak and anemic at best. We've got to pull our power sources together in order to impact and influence change. We've got to have new and bold vision. But then secondly, we need new voices. We need new voices. We need new voices. We celebrate and we respect and highly regard the voices of the past, and we should. Joshua's generation came, but that generation followed Moses, and then another generation came, and we've got to continue to empower new voices. Voices right now who are representing the past and the present are great, but we need voices that represent the present and the future. Today we've got to find new voices to speak truth to power, and we've got to give them platforms from which to speak. And they might not quite sound like the old voices, but there's a spirit amongst them that says we still have to overcome together. We've got to raise up new voices. New voices. We cannot ride horses until they die. We've got to learn how to switch horses before the old horses die, and put the weight and the burden on younger shoulders and younger legs who have inspiration and energy and creativity and innovation and able to talk about the future with passion. It's time for some new voices. It's time for new vision, and new vision always gives rise to new voices, to new voices. And in doing so, you would help us to discover who our heroes really are. And let me say that I believe that our community is plagued and challenged because we make people who don't deserve it, we make them into heroes. This is the first and second generation who made heroes out of pimps, and heroes out of pushers, heroes out of folk with no morals, no self-esteem, no education. This is the second generation of African Americans who celebrate ignorance as a badge and a license, when the truth of the matter is we need scholarship, we need intellectuality, we need people who will go to school and read a book. How can you lead us if you're blind? Blind people cannot lead. Oh God, I wish I had somebody here who understood. We have got to raise up new voices who are our heroes, and deservingly so. We've got to redefine what that looks like. You're not a hero because you're cute. You're not a hero because your butt is big. You're not a hero because your breasts hang. You're not a hero because you can sing. You're not a hero because of how you dress. You're not a hero because you drink vodka. You can't be a hero because you bounce a ball. You are a hero if you give back to the collective progress of our community. You're a hero if you're a teacher, if you're a servant, if you're a leader, if you're a giver, if you're a change maker. We got to redefine who our heroes really are. We need to stop giving major platforms to people who parade their personal success that has nothing to do with our collective success. People who have disconnected from our people's reality are not worthy to be labeled heroes. Yes, we should applaud personal success, but very short, very brief. But we should give long applause and much encouragement and support to those who roll up their sleeves, who will go into the schoolroom, walk in the neighborhood, challenge people to make change where change is necessary. We got to where we are because the heroes of our past were not people of grandeur. They were people of dignity who were willing to commit self-sacrifice to make a difference for the rest of us. Nobody knows what kind of car Martin King drove. Nobody could care about what kind of car Du Bois had. It's not the kind of car Harriet Tubman is not known for her wardrobe. She's more known for bringing slaves out to freedom. We've got to understand we are marketing the wrong stuff and branding the wrong people as heroes and sheroes, but find a teacher making $20,000 less than an engineer, but giving her life to children. Make her the hero. We've got to give microphones and stages to new voices. And I would say to you that we got to give it to voices that might not have as much stuff, but they have the right God, the right voice, the right anointing, the right message. And to those who are building cruise ships, we cannot celebrate them, because what we need now are not cruise ships, we need battleships. We need churches that are battleships, not cruise ships. And let me say to you, cruise ships are always bigger than battleships, because cruise ships are easy to populate. Everybody's looking for a vacation, but battleships are vocational. They go to war on behalf of people who are not on board. Cruise ships make the captain rich and the boat owner rich, but battleships empower the disenfranchised. And we got to learn the difference between cruise ship businesses and cruise ship churches and cruise ship newspapers and cruise ship publishers and cruise ship entertainers, because those who are in it for themselves are saying to hell to the rest of us. But we got to decide to elevate cruise ship captains in our communities. I close. Ask a neighbor, are you riding a battleship or a cruise ship? Now, I know it's not Sunday morning, but touch your neighbor anyway and ask them, are you riding a cruise ship or a battleship? Because if you are paying the fare and supporting the cruise ship, you are working to the detriment of our community. It's going to take cruise ships to address mass incarceration, battleships rather, to address mass incarceration. And when you see black businesses and black churches and black publishers who don't deal with mass incarceration, they are not working with us. The biggest battle we have in 21st century is mass incarceration. The school to prison pipeline, the education and the achievement gap. When kids can go to jail in elementary school, there's a problem in our neighborhood. But who's dealing with it? And if your pastor is not talking to it and speaking to it, you're on a cruise ship. I did say that, didn't I? Yes. That's cruise ship church. Cruise ship church does not go where the fight is, because cruise ships steer away from dangerous waters. But battleships are made for conflict. And the God we serve has called us to go where the battle is rough, where the night is thick, where the storm rages, where conflict and confrontation is going to happen. But if you are anointed, you're not afraid of a battleship situation. And let me say this to you as I make ready to go to my seat today, my sisters and my brothers. And that is simply this. That if we keep making the cruise ships bigger and the battleships weaker, we are supporting what works to our own demise. That's why there's got to be a marriage between the black press and the black church, but not every black church. Because every black church is not a black church. Some black churches, you don't know where you are, because they're not speaking to the realities of our community. Now I need to get you to understand, I'm not racist. I just simply understand that our people group is suffering. And if anybody takes black dollars from black people but doesn't support black, we came from